Global News shows more than 60% of respondents hoping to get into the market are now giving up.
And 50% have already given up on the traditional dream of owning a single-family home.
Obviously, I've heard from Canadians like your son across the country who are really worried about the housing market, who wonder whether or not they'll ever be able to afford a home.
I have over 30 years of experience in the workforce, mainly as a corporate accountant, but everything else from a capital accountant to a general laborer to a supervisor at a grocery store. Young people, I feel, have the hardest time in history, whether that be buying a house, starting a meaningful career, or just simply getting ahead in life. Harder than their parents had, harder than their grandparents have had. Young people are stuck in the worst possible position they can be in, and here's why. Number one, buying a home and even coming up with the down payment. Young people have the biggest challenge ahead of them because, well, house prices, it's no secret, in both Canada and the US have increased drastically. But even coming up with that down payment represents a severe challenge for them. One possible solution people have presented on the internet and maybe the government is, well, rely on the bank of mom and dad. Well, this is a band-aid solution to a complex problem. And there are a number of problems with this solution. Well, what if their parents don't have the money? As coming up with that down payment isn't easy for anyone, especially with the cost of living we're all experiencing. Also, what if their parents want their children to stand on their own 2 feet, so they won't even lend them the money? Finally, what if eventually that isn't even enough, that the parents have given money, but homes continue to increase? Well, what do people do in that case? Do they go to their grandparents and say, hey, I need more money? It's not really a solution for the complex problem of housing. I remember when we bought our first house 20 years ago, I got a loan from my parents. However, homes have increased drastically. Going by the average price of a home in Alberta, it currently is roughly $514,000. So if we take 5% of that, that's right around $25,000 that parents have to come up with. That's not easy. And that's simply the down payment. That's not even including such things as realtor fees, property taxes, insurance, and also being able to make that high monthly payment each and every month. Now, usually people don't start off in a detached home. They usually start off in condos or semi-detached homes. But even those have seen a drastic increase over the last 5 years. Number two, summer and entry-level jobs. We're always telling our children, okay, you work hard, you save up to be able to buy a house. Well, as of right now, because of an increase in immigration levels, it's really challenging for young Canadian residents to even find a job. Take a look at summer jobs. Students are struggling just to be able to find a simple summer job, whether it be at a local fast food establishment, your local Tim Hortons, wherever. It is more challenging now than ever to be able to find an entry-level position so that they can gain the needed experience.
About the unemployment rate, overall it's at 6.4%, but for youth, 14.2%, the highest it's been in over a decade when you're not counting the pandemic time when everything really got skewed. So it really comes down to the economy and how these business owners are feeling the uncertainty kind of hanging over everyone?
Well, that is one thing, but I'd say there's probably two other things to point out. One is that we're actually seeing a number of people who are older than these younger generations accepting some of the jobs that younger people would typically be in. There's also technology. We know that the world iteratively changes, and technology right now is keeping us on our toes. So many employers are finding efficiencies and saying we do not need to hire as much because technology is able to actually fill in that people gap.
For those of you new to my channel, welcome. I'm Aaron, a 20-year corporate accountant and analyst living in Western Canada. If you're interested in personal finance and investing, consider subscribing to my channel. Also, unfortunately, some employers are exploiting these poor new immigrants into Canada because, well, they don't have to pay out additional benefits, they can work them long hours, or they'll work in poor working conditions. Something young Canadian residents wouldn't normally do. And unfortunately, that's hurting the young Canadians who start off in those entry-level positions. Number three, bad economy. It's no secret that in Canada and the US, both economies are suffering really bad and that the job market is extremely tough, especially for new hires and people looking to gain experience. Young people are told, go into something with computers or software or AI prompt engineering. Well, it's no secret also that many of those companies, the major tech firms, have been doing mass layoffs and downsizing. Now, there's a good chance that these companies will eventually start hiring again, but you really have to consider and think about, do you really want to be riding that wave, that roller coaster of the boom and bust cycle that I went through in oil and gas, where there's a lot of work for 2 years, but then there's 2 years of unemployment? You really need that steady paycheck, that income coming in, to be able to qualify for, secure a mortgage, and continue to meet that monthly payment, whether it be a home or a condo. Even contract work or part-time work just doesn't cut it. It's not reliable enough for young people to rely on to be able to afford a home and live in. Like I said, I worked in oil and gas for 15, 20 years, and I hated the boom and bust cycle. It was just like the tech industry, where companies would do a round of layoffs, they'd let you go, and then 5 years later, they'd try to hire you back. And I eventually got tired of it. I didn't want to ride the boom and bust cycle anymore, because it's great when everything's going well and they're hiring, but the second that they start downsizing and everybody's looking out for themselves and you're scrambling to find a job, any job, and you're almost willing to take contract work or part-time work, it's not fun at all. It doesn't even help meet your monthly expenses. I wouldn't go through that again. Number 4, the hiring process is actually very broken. I've worked in the industry for 30 years, and many hiring managers are just taking stabs at the dark at what credentials they actually need. Sometimes they're asking for degrees when someone out of high school could do simple data entry that they're wanting. They want a degree because, well, it sounds great on paper. Well, it's not necessary. There's people working as administrative assistants that have a degree in engineering. Now, these aren't bad jobs working as an admin assistant. These are bad matches, given the skills that those people have. The expectations are ridiculous, and recruiters go based off of what the hiring manager suggests. So if the hiring manager says, well, I think we need a degree for this, and I want someone with 5 years experience also. 5 years experience for an entry-level job. It's entry level. You shouldn't have any experience, or maybe 1 year, but the experience comes with the job. How is someone supposed to get 5 years experience if no one will hire them? I need a job first to give me the experience.
I'm sorry, Mr. Foster. We need someone with experience.
But how can I get any experience until I get a job that gives me experience?
As an example of just an outrageous policy, there's a very well-known car rental company that, well, when they hire you, they expect you to have a degree and they want you to wear a suit. So you have to have a degree and a suit. And what do? Well, you pick up people and you drive them around. You're kind of like a taxi driver in a way. And you're also washing the car in that suit. So you go, after you drop the people off, you wash the car, you're still wearing your suit. To wear a suit and have a degree just to be able to drive people around, like it's completely unnecessary. I'm baffled at why these companies asked for this. It just baffles me. Like, I've worked with CEOs and vice presidents, and, okay, I could see having a degree for certain things, but that is just completely unnecessary. Imagine you stand there washing the car in your suit when it's 30, 35 above out and you're just boiling hot, and you're like, eventually you realize, why am I doing this? What is this, what I went to school for? What I got my degree for? I don't know. You make your own decision, but it just kind of baffles me. When I was in university, I was graduating, and there were a bunch of people on campus, doing the on-campus recruitment. And I talked to some of them, whether they be from banks or insurance companies or sales positions, 100% commission. And I asked them, I said, well, do I need a degree for this? Like, I went to school for, 4 or 5 years. Do I need a degree? Oh, well, no, you don't. But it's definitely an asset, Well, of course it's an asset, but why would I spend all this money, $40,000 to $80,000, dropping it on an education that I didn't need just to go work in sales, where it's 100% commission, or at a bank at an entry-level position that doesn't require the degree? All those people that didn't have the degree, that started right out of high school and got hired on, well, they've been earning money ever since. Maybe I'll start off at a slightly higher salary or have the chance for promotion. But if it's not needed, I'm not going to school, starting out my life with a ton of debt, dropping on an education that wasn't needed for the job I'm being hired for. it makes no sense. However, about 95% of white-collar jobs now ask for a degree or some level of secondary education just because, well, that's the norm. But so often, I'd say about 40 to 60% of the time, it usually isn't needed or the full qualifications aren't necessary for that job. Number 5, student tuitions. Student tuitions have increased exponentially in both Canada and the US from what they were just 10, 15 years ago.
But it's true, 2/3 of all jobs in America require at least some college. This is the standard now. And that wasn't the case when most members of this committee were in school. And you paid far less for your degrees. That's not speculation. We looked up where the 60 members of this committee went to college and what your school's tuition was at that time. Even adjusting for inflation, college cost way less across the board.
Now, so many young people, when's the last time you've heard them say, well, I have a high school diploma, I should be fine? Well, no, because having a college or university degree, well, that's the norm now. Even that might not be enough because employers are getting more and more demanding for jobs that it just doesn't need it. And I've been in the industry a long time, so I know what I'm talking about. I see some of these people that got hired on that have degrees and they're doing simple data entry work. But unfortunately, 95% of employers, roughly, at least 90%, are asking for degrees now. That's just become the norm. That's the standard. So if you don't have a degree, well, you're in trouble. Good luck finding a job.
And we even tell kids today, look, if you don't go to college, you might as well get a face tattoo.
And pretty soon, you'll have a degree and they'll say, well, we're going to choose the person with the master's degree. Well, you don't need all that education. So a student is coming out of university or college and already starting off in debt.
Total student debt has tripled in less than 15 years. Americans now owe more in student loans than in auto loans or in credit card debt.
We see now how student debt drives income inequality, drives racial inequality.
The very folks that this system was intended to help are actually getting the worst outcomes.
And then, unfortunately, they find out, well, the job doesn't pay at the start what I thought it would. So they're already starting off in debt. They have this huge amount of debt that they're trying to pay down, and they're only making about $50,000 a year or $40,000. And given the cost of living we're experiencing today, that nowhere near enough. That doesn't even cut it. It might be 6 or 7 years before you see that real increase in salary, if ever.
More and more people also are going to graduate school, which federal grants don't cover.
And so how do you make that up?
$1 trillion of student loan debt.
The government used to give out roughly equal amounts of grants and loans, but not anymore.
Today, the average tuition at all of your same schools is almost $25,000. That's a 110% increase over a period of time when wages have gone up only 16%. So people aren't making more money, and college is objectively way more expensive.
But people are saying, well, student loans and going to college, university, that's a choice. Not really. That's a lie, because if the young people are being railroaded into, well, all employers are asking for it. So what choice do you have? Like you pretty much have to go to secondary education unless you want to work as a grocery clerk or something. Every employer, every white collar job is pretty much asking for some level of secondary education. So young people, unfortunately, have no choice but to attend secondary education. And if they don't have the money, start their life off in debt. That's why it's so beneficial for those people that have a leg up and have rich parents, so to speak, because, well, one, the parents can probably pay for the tuition. Two, they don't have to get a second job, right? They can focus on their studies. They don't have to worry about, well, I need a second job and I might not do as good, get A's because I'm working part-time. Three, buying a house, right? That's a lot easier if you inherit a house from your parents, or they'll put up the down payment or anything. It frees up your emotional stress. You don't have that financial worry hanging over your head. And four, well, they have the connections, so they can help connect you, get you a better job, maybe get you in front of the right people so that you land that great interview and job and you get hired on at a great prestigious company, and suddenly you don't have the worry of someone else who's starting kind of, without all those benefits that Well, they had to fund their own education and they had to work part-time, and they don't maybe have the networks that rich people do. Like, I'm not trying to, use that as a scapegoat and say, well, you're off the hook, don't work hard. Of course, you should work really hard, but I'm just saying rich people have an unfair advantage over other people, the middle and working class. As the saying goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. My advice to young people is before you start attending a secondary education, really think and do some research on, and it's hard to find, but do your best on finding, okay, what's the average job placement in the field I'm going for? Like, what's the chances of me landing a job in that field? 2, what does it pay and when does it pay it? Like, okay, I can expect after 1 to 5 years to receive this, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. And 3, what's it going to cost me? Like, what's my total tuition going to cost me? So you can really map out and think, okay, is this worth it? Is, 4-year degree in geography worth it when the average job placement is only 3%? Or is it better to pursue a degree in some sort of computer engineering or refrigeration if you want to go into the trades or something else? Really research as best you can into what the average job placement is, what it pays, and how much it's going to cost you. And I don't understand why universities and colleges don't disclose this information, as they have it at their fingertips. Like, they know this information. But my guess is it'll hurt their bottom line. So they're not too eager to just give out that information because they want to have all the students they can coming in and paying those tuitions, even though they're probably not going to land a job in that field or it pays real low. Like, it would really suck to go to college or university for 4 or 5 years, drop 60 grand on education, and your chances of landing and finding a job in that field are only about 30, 40%. Oh, and the job only pays $45,000 a year. Like, it's just not worth it then. One thing I really want young people to remember is it's not you, it's the situation. You're being dealt an unfair hand in life. I know it's frustrating. At least I can try to imagine what you must feel like, because you're probably doing everything right. And all I can say to you are these 4 tips, and I hope at least they help you to some degree. Number 1 is be persistent. It's going to be the person that's most persistent, that knows the employer best, that gets the job. How passionate and determined they are. If you just I kind of tried for the position, but oh well. No, if you're persistent, the employers usually will recognize that. Like, I've seen it where I work, that we notice people that are persistent, or they take that extra initiative and they stand out in some fashion or degree. That stands out to us, and we're saying, hey, he looks like a real good hire. She actually came in and she was so nice and persistent, and she actually took the time to look up this. That really stands out and sets you apart. Number 2 is really look into employers. Like, you wouldn't believe how many people don't do the basic level research. But an additional tip is do some research that other people wouldn't think of. And it really stands out on who kind of knows the company or has done the research and who hasn't. And I'll give you an example. I have a YouTube channel and I get hit up all the time by people. Hi, your videos are great, but you're not optimizing for SEO, search engine optimization, and I can help you, blah, blah, blah. I can almost tell instantly that they've watched like 1 minute of my videos and they just, oh yeah, they print screen this, and they haven't told me, hey, Aaron, I really like how you did this, but I would have done this differently. Or what about your video on this topic? Have you thought about doing a video on another topic? Like, just some level of research, like, wow, they actually took 10, 20 minutes and actually really sat down, thought about it, looked through my videos. I did 5 minutes. I sat there and then I did my usual boop, boop, boop. I'm not saying spend days, but just a little bit more effort, and it really shows. Number 3 is consider sectors that you wouldn't normally think of, such as the trades or healthcare, or even some avenue of computer technology. Now, we know with the mass computer tech layoffs that they're having, that might not be a guaranteed slam dunk, but something like design engineering or AI work or something along those lines. Number 4 is learn to some degree AI and prompt engineering. I actually did really, really well. I only did so-so in accounting, pretty good, but not the best. But I'm a slam dunk when it comes to information technologies. So learn some degree of computer algorithms, AI programming, prompt engineering, because this really stands out and shows off what you know compared to other potential candidates. Here are some free, absolutely free courses that you can take that I found online. I'll put the links to these right here. Check them out, and they're absolutely great, and they're free. And at least you have some idea of, oh, that's how this works. Oh, I know Google Analytics. Oh, I know ChatGPT prompt engineering really well. You know, something to stand out and set you apart from those other candidates. So that's it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this. And if you want to learn about personal finance and investing from a 20-year Canadian corporate accountant, please consider subscribing and like this video if you got something out of it. Till next time.